Did you know ancient Egyptian queens used crocodile poop as birth control? Yeah, they actually shoved it up there. On purpose. And that's just the start. Turns out, royal women, queens, princesses, the ones dripping in gold, were bathing in parasite-filled water, painting their faces with lead and scrubbing their teeth with crushed rock. So, here's the real question. What other awful hygiene practices did the royal women of ancient Egypt follow? Before we jump into these forgotten corners of ancient Egypt, if you enjoy the lesser-known, the strange, and the overlooked parts of history, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I still think it's kind of amazing we're exploring the ancient world together, from different places, across time zones, connected by curiosity. All right, let's get into it and kick things off with Number 10. Perfumed cones of rancid fat. Body odor wasn't exactly a vibe in ancient Egypt. They hated it. But instead of soap or deodorant, elite women turned to melting fat. At banquets, they'd perch little cones of scented animal fat on their wigs. Yes, their wigs. The idea was that as the cone melted, slowly, over the course of the evening, it would drip perfume down their heads, and necks, and backs, and eventually, everywhere. Sounds kind of elegant, until you remember it's basically hot goose grease sliding down your scalp in a 100-degree room. But wait, there's more. They also used early deodorant creams made from delightful ingredients like ostrich egg, crushed nuts, tortoise shell, and tamarisk bark, all mixed into animal fat, naturally. One ancient recipe called for smearing it under the arms and across the legs. So that's rancid fat with a splash of reptile shell and egg, slathered on. Now, in Egypt's heat, that fat wouldn't stay fresh for long, which means the royal ladies weren't just masking odor, they were fermenting it too. And by mid-feast, the queen may have smelled like frankincense, layered over stewed beef. But now the real question is she attracting admirers this way? Maybe. But what about attracting flies? Definitely. And somehow, this was considered high class. So yes, welcome to Royal Elegance, Ancient Edition. Meanwhile, as fat melted down their faces, another problem crawled through their wigs, one that no perfume could hide. Number 9. Shaved heads and spit remedies. Lice were everywhere, even inside the palace. Royal women tried to stay ahead of the itch by shaving their heads and wearing fancy wigs. It looked good and helped a bit. But even that didn't always cut it. One ancient medical scroll, the Ebers Papyrus, offered a real gem of a solution. Fill your mouth with warm date mush and spit it onto your skin to drive off lice and fleas. Yes, spit. As in, gargle fermented porridge and then drool it on yourself like some kind of organic bug spray. And it gets worse. Cleopatra had golden knit combs, literal solid gold lice tools, which sounds luxurious until you realize she needed them, and she wasn't alone. Ointments made from oil and bitter herbs were rubbed into the scalp. By 450 BC, some advisors even said, just shave everything. Scalp, brows, the works. So, While royal ladies looked polished, they were constantly battling bugs. On the other hand, their go-to method for cleanliness might have been even more dangerous than the bugs they were trying to wash off. Number 8. Bathing in parasite-infested water. The Egyptian elite bathed daily. They took pride in being clean. But here's the catch. The water wasn't. Most of it came straight from the Nile or palace pools, which, beautiful as they looked, were swarming with parasites. One of the worst offenders was a worm called schistosoma. It slips through your skin in water and makes itself at home in your organs. Mummy studies show it was common, up to 65% infected. So yes, even the royals weren't spared. And you know, they didn't boil or filter water, as they didn't know what a microbe was. So, while a princess might soak in scented bath water, it could be full of invisible worms. And that wasn't the only risk. Toilets were basic, just a limestone seat over sand. There was no sewage system, no soap either, unless you count salty natron. They used linen cloths to wipe, then rinsed with Nile water, which is exactly where the parasites came from in the first place. So, bathing felt refreshing, but it could lead to chronic illness, bladder infections, and even organ failure. All right, next on the list. Hold on to your gums for this one. Number 7. Sand and salt toothpaste. Ancient Egypt gets credit for inventing toothpaste. Great start. But their version was like brushing with sandpaper. One old recipe from a 4th century papyrus calls for a mix of rock salt, dried iris, pepper, and mint. Add saliva, then scrub. Sounds refreshing until your gums start bleeding. An Austrian dentist once recreated the formula. His review? Instant gum damage. Direct quote: other versions tossed in pumice, burned eggshells, or even ox hoof ash. Yes, ash from hooves, all to get that polished look. It worked, sort of. The powders did remove plaque, but they also took enamel with them. Microscope studies of mummies' teeth show extreme wear. We're talking down to the nerves. Cracks, abscesses, infections. Basically, dental misery wrapped in linen. And they didn't even have toothbrushes. They used frayed twigs or strips of cloth. Primitive flossing, minus the minty finish. And to top it off, some tombs included breath fresheners made of honey and frankincense. So, at least their breath smelled decent, while their mouths fell apart. But even the pain of dental powder pales compared to what they smeared on their legs to stay smooth. Number 6. Arsenic-laced hair removal. Smooth skin meant beauty, and in ancient Egypt, smooth meant completely hairless. But razors weren't reliable, so the royals went chemical, very chemical. One recipe mixed arsenic sulfide with quicklime. Yes, arsenic, the poison. They'd smear it on their legs or underarms. It burned off the hair. And sometimes the skin. Modern scientists describe it as extremely poisonous, which feels accurate. Absorbing arsenic through the skin was a real risk. But hey, anything for beauty, right? Then there was a gentler option, sugaring. Basically early waxing with boiled sugar, water, and lemon. But many elite women stuck with the arsenic sludge because it worked faster. Some texts even mention pastes made of arsenic, starch, and lime. More evidence that this wasn't rare. It was routine. So, when you picture a queen with glowing, flawless skin, remember, she may have been itchy, burned, and mildly poisoned underneath. All in the name of flawless. And if you thought that was painful, wait till you hear what they did to treat the womb. Number 5. Smoke fumigation and urine douches. When ancient Egyptian women had health issues, palace doctors had answers. Not good ones, but answers. Take the idea of smoking the womb, yes, literally. The Kohl Gynecological Papyrus, written around 1825 BC, describes a treatment where a woman squats over a pot of burning incense and oil. The smoke rises and enters the body. Supposedly, this helped with wandering womb, which, spoiler, is not a real medical condition. They believed the uterus could wander around inside a woman's body like a lost balloon. So the solution was to lure it back down with scented smoke. Another gem from the same scroll states that if a woman's womb is ill and her eyes ache, she ought to burn goose fat near her eyes, then feed her raw donkey liver. Don't ask. No one knows. And yes, it gets worse. One treatment calls for a wash using donkey urine. But not just any donkey. The urine had to come from a mother donkey who gave birth that day. Apparently, fresh donkey pee was thought to have curative sensations. In practice, this meant pouring warm livestock urine over someone's genitals and calling it medicine. So, between the smoke, fire, raw organ meat, and animal waste, it's a miracle anyone got better. And mind you, these were official palace remedies. So if a queen had menstrual cramps or was accused of hysteria, she might end up smoked, splashed, and force-fed. Ancient wellness, folks. Hard to tell where medicine ended and punishment began. But not all dangers looked or smelled so obvious. Some came hidden in royal beauty jars. Number 4. Deadly carcinogenic cosmetics. Queen Hatshepsut ruled Egypt in the 15th century BC. She was one of the most powerful women in ancient history. She also may have moisturized herself into an early grave. In 2007, researchers in Germany found a tiny flask in her personal toiletry box. Inside was a dried-up cream, likely used for a skin condition. History suggests her family had hereditary skin problems. So, nothing strange there. Until they analyzed it. The cream was mostly natural oils, palm, nutmeg, things like that. But tucked inside was a not-so-natural ingredient, benzoapyrene. That's a carcinogenic tar byproduct, the same kind of compound found in creosote. And coal tar, which, by the way, were used in embalming fluid. Not exactly something you want to rub on your face daily. Researchers think Hatshepsut applied this stuff regularly, believing it was medicine. In reality, it was a slow-acting poison. So, it may have caused the cancer that killed her. Imagine slathering on your fancy royal balm each morning, thinking you're healing your skin, when you're actually marinating in toxins. brutal. And a reminder, even the most luxurious self-care can backfire when you don't know what's in the bottle. Similarly, the most iconic Egyptian look, thick eyeliner and pale skin, was also one of the deadliest. Number 3. Lead-laden makeup and Kohl poisoning. Everyone knows the look. Jet black eyes, smooth skin, that perfect ancient Instagram glow. But behind the glamour, straight up poison. Royal women, especially in the New Kingdom, were heavy on the Kohl. Daily eyeliner, caked on with ivory sticks. And the ingredients was mostly ground galena. That's lead sulfide, if you're wondering. They'd mix it with oil or fat, stash it in fancy little tubes, then smear it around their eyes like it was a health ritual. Which, to be fair, they thought it was. Kohl was believed to fight off eye infections and ward off evil spirits. And weirdly, in low doses, that might have been partly true. But the daily dose they were using? Not so harmless. You see, lead gets into the bloodstream fast, through skin, tear ducts, and even the eyes themselves. Over time, it builds up. We're talking anemia, nerve damage, fertility issues, miscarriages, and so on. All the side effects the ancient court probably didn't connect to their makeup routine. And it wasn't just eyeliner. They also used white face paint made from lead carbonate, the same deadly stuff that killed off beauty icons in Rome and the Renaissance. But again, a pale face meant high status. So royal women would powder up, chasing the perfect complexion, while slowly destroying the one underneath. Rouge was made from red ochre or cinnabar. Yes, cinnabar, as in mercuric sulfide. So their lipstick was also low-key a chemistry experiment, and not the good kind. Meanwhile, as royal women painted on poison, their most vulnerable moment came not with a brush, but with childbirth. Number 2. Royal childbirth on filthy birth bricks. Being royal didn't save you from childbirth, and it definitely didn't save you from the germs. Queens gave birth squatting or kneeling, not on beds, but on 2 mud bricks. They were called birth bricks, and yes, they reused them. Over and over. Blood, fluids, bacteria, all soaking in. Perfect breeding ground. No sterilization. No boiling water. As for cutting the umbilical cord, it was performed with whatever blade was lying around. Copper razor, flint knife. Unwashed, of course. They had spells for the placenta. Actual chants like, "Come down, placenta, come down." But nothing about washing hands. No one had even a basic idea of infection. Midwives were focused on spirits and goddesses, not germs, and the result was high infant mortality and high maternal death. Textbooks from the time mentioned remedies like herbal drinks, lubricants, that sort of thing. And it only got worse after the baby was born. If the linen wasn't clean, or someone touched the cord stump with dirty hands, that baby could be gone by morning. Tetanus, sepsis, gut infections. One source even says the most common infant illness involved the digestive system, which makes sense, given the floor birth situation. So, yeah, giving birth was one of the most dangerous things an elite woman could do. And by today's standards, it was a total hygiene disaster. And to avoid going through that pain again, they turned to something unthinkable. Number 1. Crocodile Dung, Contraceptive Pessaries. Topping this list is a practice that truly shocks the modern sensibility: the use of crocodile excrement as a vaginal suppository. Yeah, you heard that right. Ancient Egyptian birth control sometimes involved crocodile poop, directly. And it wasn't a joke or a misunderstanding. This was an actual medical practice, recorded in the Kahun papyrus around 1800 BC. The idea was to mix crocodile dung with fermented plant matter or sour milk, then shape it into a kind of pessary, and then insert it before intercourse. Because nothing says romance like a reptile-based suppository, so the logic, if we can call it that, was chemical. They thought the acidic or alkaline nature of the dung might kill sperm. And oddly, they weren't completely wrong. Modern science says it might have had some spermicidal effect. But, and this is a big but, it was also crawling with bacteria. Warm, moist environments like the vagina are already sensitive. Now imagine adding crocodile feces into the mix. You're practically rolling out the red carpet for UTIs, cervical inflammation, sepsis. Take your pick. And if crocodile dung didn't do the trick, other recipes suggested fermented dough, honey, or even elephant dung. Apparently, if it came out of an animal and looked paste-like, someone tried to stick it up there. For women in the royal harem, not getting pregnant could mean survival, status, protection, power. So they took the risk. But by any modern standard, it's horrifying. It was a full-on microbial assault. And that's why crocodile dung contraception takes the crown as the worst hygiene practice in ancient Egypt's royal playbook. So while some ancient ideas aged well, this one did not. And in the end, even in the richest courts of the ancient world, royal women lived with daily rituals that slowly poisoned, burned, or infected them, all in the name of beauty, purity, and control. Their elegance was built on quiet suffering, reminding us that status never guaranteed safety. Not even from your own routine.